channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're enjoying the Super Sunday. It's beautiful out there. And we've just returned from that action between Liverpool and West Ham United. Of course, Tottenham Hotspurs getting thrashed by Wolverhampton Wanderers. Pretty much, I expected Spurs to lose against Wolves because Wolves is one of those sides that torment them, but I did not expect them to lose with that magnitude. Anyways, welcome back to the channel. I missed you guys yesterday evening due to unforeseen circumstances, but we'll get things underway. Later on, of course, Newcastle will be up against Manchester United. We'll be discussing that slightly, but more importantly, Liverpool have edged closer and closer to winning the 2024-2025 Premier League title. They just now need 2 more wins or just 1 win, depending on how things go on Arsenal's side, because that victory against West Ham 2-1, it finished and gives them a 13-point gap between them and the Gunners, with about 6 games on the calendar left to play in this Premier League running. It was a beautiful game. I thought Liverpool dominated affairs in the first half. Second half, late on in the second half, West Ham got a bit confident that they could get a result in the game, and they pushed for it, and they got the equalizer. Unfortunately, they could not keep their shit together. They could not keep their goal well defended. And while they will credit Lucas Paqueta for his vitalness in leading to the equalizer, they will equally blame him in sort of causing what resulted out to be the match goal winning goal for the Liverpool side. And so, of course, there were plenty of plenty of missed opportunities. Alfonso Areola being called to action on the other side and made a couple of significant saves and that kind of thing. But Mo Salah taking his tally to a 45 goal involvement so far in the Premier League. That's in both as goals and assists, with that side, side foot assist that big lay in probably for Diego Jota and Luis Diaz to run to, but it was Luis Diaz that made the most of it to give Liverpool the lead prior to halftime, and it was 1-0. Then later on in the second half, like I said, they did concede through an own goal. Lucas Paqueta with an incredible pass to find Aaron Wan-Bissaka in space, and then Aaron Wan-Bissaka makes the cross, but due to a miscommunication between Virgil van Dijk and Robertson, you had Liverpool set themselves up for failure when Robertson scored that as an own goal. And we all thought, at least for a moment, I did think maybe West Ham can grind this out and perhaps take a point from this one. But Liverpool looked the better, the more prone side to get a victory if any of the two sides was to walk away with all 3 points. And just minutes later, I think it was about 3 minutes later or so, or thereabout, when Liverpool restored their lead through Virgil van Dijk's header of a corner kick. Now, why I say Lucas Paqueta is to blame is because Lucas Paqueta has ball possession, and somehow he feels he should go down easily in calling for a foul. He does not play to the whistle. And I mean, this is something we've talked about over and over again. Players ought to play to the whistle, not to their judgment of what's an offense, what's a foul, and what's not. So literally, Lucas Paqueta gets into a duel with, a Liverpool player, and he judges himself to have been fouled, so he concedes possession. Now, in conceding possession, that's how Liverpool and a corner kick, because they have an attempt on goal that Alfonso Areola has to parry outside at the near post. That leads into a corner, and that corner, it is from that corner that resulted into Liverpool's, second goal of the evening through captain Virgil van Dijk, who had been culpable in his miscommunication with Robertson minutes earlier into leading to that equalizer. So Alexis McAllister's corner was turned in by Virgil van Dijk. Again, of course, there was a bit of a nudge by Virgil van Dijk with the player in front of him. I do not remember which West Ham player was in front of him, but there was a bit of that nudge to give himself the space to hit that ball beyond the reach of Alfonso Areola. So It finished 2-1 for West Ham there as for Liverpool as they edged closer to the Premier League title. Now, I did mention in the preamble that they are just 2 victories away to being crowned champions. And here's why. If Arsenal win their next game and Liverpool win, that means, remember, the point difference is 13 now. That means we will be left with 5 games and the point difference will still be 13. Remember, in a total of 5 games, you can attain as many as 15 points if you win all of them. So that would then take it to, match day 34 for it to be decided that Liverpool are crowned champions. However, if Arsenal lose their following game and then Liverpool go ahead to win, then Liverpool can be crowned champions next weekend during the Easter weekend. So that's how close Liverpool have drawn themselves to being crowned champions for this season. But anyway, allow us to leave at that and move on to Chelsea, because things did not click for Chelsea today. They did score goals, but they needed a late equalizer of Jadon Sancho to make sure that they earn at least a point from this particular fixture against Ipswich Town. My personal expectation and perhaps the prediction as good was that Chelsea would win this game. But remember, Chelsea are in the running for that top 4 finish or top 5 finish to guarantee themselves a slot in next season's UEFA Champions League. But they are in that context with teams like Man City, who yesterday surprised us as they beat up against Crystal Palace by 5-2. They are in the running with Aston Villa, who won their game against Southampton by 3-0 yesterday. And of course, Newcastle, who they themselves entertained Manchester United today in the late kickoff at 7:30 p.m. So those are the teams that they are competing with for those 2 places. That's 4th and 5th place respectively. The reason why I say that is because Arsenal occupy 2nd and Nottingham Forest occupy 3rd. While these 2 can still compete with the other 2, I think the biggest battle is between those 4 teams to decide who are the extra 2 that will join the other 3. So it's Chelsea, it's Manchester City, it's Newcastle, it's Aston Villa. Those 4 teams in the running there. So, but Chelsea went down. They did concede 2 goals in as early as the first half through Enciso, yes, and then of course you had Johnson there scoring to make sure it was 2-0 for the visitors in Ipswich Town. Now we're talking about a team that is literally on the verge of relegation, visiting the Stamford Bridge, and that's why, given Chelsea's aspirations for finishing in the top 5 to qualify for the UEFA Champions League, my expectation was that they would win this game and then strengthen their chances. But they did concede to Julio Enciso, yes, and Ben Johnson's goals. Mena, thank you for tuning to the broadcast. Thank you so much. So they did concede those 2 early goals in the first half, and then it sort of put them on the defensive, but they were helped by an own goal of Axel Tuanzebe. For those of you that do remember this one, a former Manchester United player, there, Axel Tuanzebe. I think he didn't he not have a stint at Aston Villa at some point? I stand to be corrected on that one. That was in as early as the 46th minute, very early into the second half. So that was the consolation. And as the game wore on loan player from Manchester United, Jadon Sancho, in the 79th minute, did score to give to restore parity for Chelsea, and they had hoped that they would get the winning goal, but it just never came to pass for them today, as they shared the spoils in that 2-2 draw there at Stamford Bridge. In the other result, like I said, you had Wolverhampton Wanderers thrash Tottenham Hotspurs by 4-2. Like I said, the expectation given the recent record between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Tottenham Hotspurs, I did expect Tottenham Hotspurs to lose, bearing in mind that they had to rest players or to play a weaker team in preparation for the return leg of the UEFA Europa League against Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, it's not that they did field a weaker team, because their team I thought was strong enough to get a result against Wolves, but it was just not that day, because when you look at their starting lineup, Guillermo Vicario, Ben Davis, Cristiano Romero, Archie Gray, Dejad Spence, Pepe Matza, Yuvis Bissouma, James Madson. That's pretty much the core midfield. You had Dominic Solanke up front, you had Brennan Johnson and Matthias Tell. So that's usually a decent lineup to get for you a result when you Tottenham Hotspurs. But it was a third day, and they did concede in as early as the second minute through Ryan Ashnori there, and then the Jad Spurs did score an own goal in the 38th minute to ensure that Wolverhampton Wanderers went into halftime with that 2-0 lead. In the second half, they pulled one back through Matthias Tell, Brennan Johnson providing the assist. But then that was in the 59th minute. About 5 minutes later, Wolverhampton Wanderers restored their 2-goal cushion through Larson, with Brian Ashnori providing the assist. And then in the 85th minute, Richarlison off the bench did score to pull one back for Spurs, so it was 3-2, and one would have hoped for a miracle that at least Spurs walk away with the point. But then Matthias Cunha had other ideas. A player, Matthias Cunha, who is on Manchester United's radar as well as Nottingham Forest, but it is said that the player would prefer to join Manchester United over Nottingham Forest should the choice come down to those two clubs. Now, it goes without saying that Arsenal have previously been in the mix of the demand for Matthias Cunha. And what is important to note is that Matthias Cunha was previously at Atletico Madrid, where Arsenal's new sporting director in Andrea Berta is now serving there. So he was involved in that deal that took him to Atletico Madrid, and the deal that eventually saw him leave. So there's that bit of a mix. So it will be up to Arsenal to either confirm that they do have interest in the player, whose release clause is expected to be in the region of £63 million going into the season. Please forgive the background noise that should you experience any. So Matthias Cunha is going to be a hot cake this summer, with Manchester United strongly linked to the move with the Brazilian as well as Nottingham Forest, who are very willing to sign him in the January transfer window, although the player decided to renew his contract at the club, and stay, because he did come out to say that he did not want to leave the club at the time when they were fighting for their lives, when they were fighting against relegation. But he does have a gentleman's agreement that should suitors come in the summer, he will be let go for the right fee, and that is said to be somewhere in the region of £63 million. So we'll wait to hear more from that. He's the one that did score that goal that put the icing on the cake there for Vita Pereira's side. So, anyways, sorry, about the Manchester United game. The game kicks off at 6:30 p.m. and it does kick off not 7:30 p.m. as earlier on indicated. And just to let you know, here are the starting lineups from the two sides. Nick Pope is in goal for Newcastle. Kieran Trippier, Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, Tino Livramento, Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, Joelinton, Jacob Murphy, Alexander Isak, and Harvey Barnes. So, in fact, I should be tuning on that game in a bit so that I will let you know, guys, how things are faring. But it's still nil-nil. On the side of Manchester United, sorry, forgive me for that, but I need to be following. Should either side score a goal while we are still on this broadcast? But like I said, it's still nil-nil. On the side of Manchester United, they do have Altay Bayindir, Andre Onana following his double mistakes against Lyon on Thursday on Thursday this week in the Europa League quarter-final first leg in France. He has been left out of the matchday squad. So it's Alta Bayindir in goal, Lenioro, Victor Lindelof, and Mazraoui in that back three. And then the midfield is Manuel Ugarte, Christian Eriksen, Diego Dalot, and Harry Amas, while Alejandro Garnacho, Bruno Fernandes do deputize Joshua Zirkzee, who is leading the front lines. So, I mean, if I thought at this goalkeeper in Altai Baindia did audition himself well in that FA Cup game in which Manchester United knocked out Arsenal on the penalty. So he's a very, very capable goalkeeper. But Jacob Murphy here missing an opportunity to put Newcastle in the lead. Joshua Zirkzee there being culprit for a loose pass or a blind pass that nearly gave Newcastle that opportunity to go ahead through Jacob Murphy, but it went wide of the mark. Anyways, maybe briefly about yesterday's results. Like I said, yesterday we did witness Arsenal share the spoils with Brentford in a 1-1 draw. Arsenal will only have themselves to blame for conceding that goal against Yuan Visa, who did score the equalizer. While on the other side, I think, forgive me, I do forget Arsenal's goal scorer, but it was Thomas Partey. Yes, it was Thomas Partey out of a counter attack that was led or spearheaded. It was started by David Villa through Declan Rice, who ran an entire 70 yards before playing in Thomas Partey. That had given Arsenal the lead. Very poor result, but I think Arsenal have already conceded the Premier League title to Liverpool, and that's a known secret. Aston Villa, like I said, did beat up against Southampton by 3-0. Marco Asensio missing a penalty in that particular game. Oli Watkins on target. Daniel Malin on target there. Then, in fact, Marco Asensio missed 2 penalties in that game, while John McGinn was on target there. So it was John McGinn's fault, Malin and Oli Watkins, with Asensio missing 2 penalties in the fixture there. And then you had the other game, Nottingham Forest lose to Everton. Everton scoring very late on through Abdoulaye Diakore, very, very late, deep in stoppage time. Yes, they lost the conceded possession at a very bad spot in a very bad time. And then Leicester City are forcing Brighton into a 2-2 draw. Brighton needing 2 penalties that were scored by João Pedro to ensure that they have a point, while Mavididi was on target for Leicester City, as well as Okoli for Leicester's, I think, first goals in as many games as I can remember. In the Manchester City game, I think Kevin De Bruyne was my man of the match. I mean, he's already announced at this stage that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, but oh my. Of course, Crystal Palace will also blame themselves because they took a 2-0 lead in as early as the first half. That's about within 21 minutes. And then they lost that lead before the end of the half. In fact, by halftime, Man City could have easily been leading that game 3-2, while Crystal Palace had a goal cancelled for an offside. That was Ebelechi Eze, which would have been the third for Palace. But again, Ebelechi Eze opening the scoring in the 8th minute. Richards on target there with the header. Again, Man City looking very shabby in defending the set piece, free header, and he scores past Ederson Morales, and it was 2-0. Then Kevin De Bruyne with a sumptuous free kick that pulled one back for City, while Omar Mamosh then scored to restore parity for the Premier League reigning champions. And then in the second stanza, Mateo Kovacic with a very, very brilliant strike. Then Marketing, yeah, scored the 4th, while O'Reilly was on target for Manchester City's 5th. Very, very impressive result. I know, disappointingly, unfortunately, our prediction had been a 2-1 victory for Crystal Palace. That did not come to pass. It was that goal. It was that bad for us on the day. Our also prediction was that Arsenal would win 2-1. That did not come to pass, but we will blame Bukayo Saka for missing that golden opportunity when he intercepted that ball. against Matt Sells against Mark Pluckett in thingy in the Brentford call, but he did not take that chance as anyone would have hoped. So we did well wrong for all our predictions yesterday. But do let me know down in the comment section what your prediction is for Manchester United versus Newcastle. I do think Manchester United, unfortunately, will lose today. Maybe by 2-1 or 2 goals. Otherwise, stay blessed, and I'll see you until next time. Bye bye.